Foo Fighters would be born in 1994, but the band's early years were tumultuous to say the least, and while some bands would go through lineup changes and birthing pains before anybody really knows who they are, Foo Fighters already had a lot of attention due to frontman Dave Grohl's time in Nirvana. Within the first 3 years of the band, they'd lose half their original lineup, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at exactly what happened. Foo Fighters' original rhythm section would be made up of bassist Nate Mendel and drummer William Goldsmith. The pair were originally playing in the alternative band Sunny Day Real Estate, but 7 months following the release of the group's debut album, the band was finished. The group's frontman had a new calling in his life, religion. The unfortunate breakup, though, seemed to happen at the exact right time, as former Nirvana drummer Dave Grohl had recorded some songs in the studio under the moniker Foo Fighters, and he was now assembling a band to take on the road with him. Grohl had been offered the chance to drum for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, but he turned down the opportunity. He would, however, do a one-off performance with the band in 1994 on Saturday Night Live. Grohl would attend Sunny Day Real Estate's final show and was impressed with the rhythm section, and he gave them a copy of the songs he had recently recorded in the studio. Goldsmith and Mendel would end up joining Grohl's outfit, which also included Grohl's former Nirvana bandmate and Germ's guitarist Pat Smear. At the time, Grohl said that they weren't going to tour extensively, but that wasn't the case. They'd play about 5 to 6 shows a week, making initially about $500 a night, but the tour was difficult for Goldsmith, as in the documentary Back and Forth, he admitted lacking confidence in his playing, especially when drumming in front of Dave Grohl, who's such an accomplished drummer. Goldsmith soon resorted to substance abuse to cope with the pressure, and only making things worse was that the venues were getting bigger and bigger as the tour rolled on. It was at the rehearsals that the seeds of the group's second album were being planted when they would jam at sound checks, mostly around an idea that Grohl had. Each member would then contribute their own parts to make a finished track, but perhaps no one was under a greater microscope than Goldsmith. Grohl would admit in the same documentary Back and Forth that when he writes a song, he generally has an idea in his head of what the drums should be doing. While the band's first record was mostly recorded and co-produced by Grohl, and was a fairly easy and relaxed process, the same really couldn't be said for the Foo's second album. The Color and the Shape, which was released in 1997, would be a tedious, arduous, and expensive process. Working with Pixies producer Gil Norton, Grohl would summarize the producer's style, telling Vulture, he was, and I quote, a whip-cracking, ass-kicking, do-it 50 times to get a right kind of producer. It was that type of environment that proved to be too much for Goldsmith. Nate Mendel recalled in the same documentary that Norton referred to himself and Goldsmith as the rhythmless section. It culminated with Grohl being frustrated with the progress that the Foos had made by the Christmas of '96, and the band opted to take a break and return the following year. But Goldsmith wouldn't hit the studio with the band. Unbeknownst to the drummer, Grohl would end up re-recording almost all of Goldsmith's parts except for the songs Doll and Up in Arms. Goldsmith at the time was under the impression that Grohl was just simply doing overdubs and wrapping up the recording process, but it wasn't until Mendel broke the truth to the drummer that Goldsmith would confront Grohl about what he was doing. With Grohl recalling to Vulture, I'll never forget one of the things he said. Actually, my friend offered me a job digging ditches. I said, really? You know what? You should do that for a little while. I used to dig ditches. I did masonry when I was a kid in the Virginia summer heat. Go dig some ditches for a while, then you'll want to be a drummer. Grohl would claim he begged William to stay on the group, at least as the touring drummer, but he declined the offer. But when Vulture reached out to Goldsmith, he painted a different version of events. He'd say, we tracked the drums on the record up to 13 hours a day for 3 consecutive weeks, in one case doing 96 takes on a single song. So the idea that I would throw it all away because Dave wanted to play drums on 2 songs is preposterous. Finding out that all the work I had done was being disregarded, that led to my decision to leave. It was during the tour for Foo Fighters' first album that Grohl befriended Alanis Morissette's drummer Taylor Hawkins at the K-Rock Almost Acoustic Christmas concert, with Grohl recalling, we got along like brothers from the second we first met. We were best friends from that moment. Hawkins would add in the book This Is a Call, I was this little dork playing in this backup band, and the first thing that really struck me was that Dave was really nice and fun to hang out with. With a new drummer in tow, the band was ready to hit the road to support their second record, but they hit another snag. Guitarist Pat Smear, who was nearly a decade older than the rest of the band, came into rehearsal one day and claimed he was burnt out by the relentless touring and didn't want to be a member of the group anymore. The band, having already booked a tour, begged the guitarist to stay until they could at least find a replacement. which they thought maybe would take a couple weeks or a month or so, but it ended up stretching out to nearly half a year. He'd be replaced by Grohl's old Scream bandmate Franz Stahl, and another reason that was rumored to be responsible for Smear's departure was the fact that the guitarist was good friends with Dave Grohl's first wife, Jennifer Youngblood. Grohl would be married to her from 1994 to 1997, and he got divorced during the recording of The Color and the Shape. Smear, however, would return to the group in 2005, and the band would expand to have 3 guitar players. Stahl, meanwhile, would be fired in 1999 during the recording of the group's third record, There's Nothing Left to Lose, and be replaced with current guitarist Chris Shiflett. As for Goldsmith, you can hear his version of the songs he played for The Color and the Shape on YouTube, and you can compare them to what Grohl ended up re-recording. Goldsmith would look back at his time in the band and the recording of the second album, telling the Daily Mail, "The versions Dave did were very similar. I'm not saying I'm an amazing drummer, but the work that I did was not bad." He'd go on to say that he wishes he never met Grohl, and compared the frontman to a bully. He'd also go on to explain that Kurt Cobain's style of being the creative force in Nirvana likely stifled Grohl's own ambitions and ideas, and that resulted in Grohl mimicking Kurt when it came time to writing music for Foo Fighters. Goldsmith would claim that despite his tension with Grohl, he still gets a small royalty check every 6 months or so, in the amount of about $1,100. While Goldsmith's relationship with Grohl was fraught, his relationship with Mandel was also strained around the time he left, but they would end up playing together in the subsequent years in the band The Fire Theft and Sunny Day Real Estate. As for talking to Grohl, he would claim he met Dave at a festival in 2002, telling The Guardian that the Foo's frontman came up to him and told him that he liked Fire Theft's album. But in 2018, Goldsmith would claim that Grohl was blocking the release of Sunny Day Real Estate's 5th album, which was recorded at Grohl's Studio 606, but Nate Mendel shot back claiming that the band hadn't received the proper engineering assistance and it wasn't Grohl's fault. Taylor Hawkins would weigh in on the Goldsmith controversy and feud, admitting that he wasn't comfortable playing in Foo Fighters until they started recording One by One in the early 2000s. Hawkins would add the first Foo Fighters drummer buckled under the pressure and still blames Dave for that. Like, no dude, Dave never fired him. In 2019, it came out that Goldsmith hit some tough financial times, and a Kickstarter campaign was started to help him out. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll Stories. Take care.